his leg on purpose, just to get out of wearing this silly scrap of cloth. It wouldn't do to anger the woman before she became his wife. Well, Houston wasn't going to marry her, so he could anger her all he wanted. And he wasn't going to wrap flowers around the crown of his brown, broad-brimmed hat. No, ma'am. No, sir. He hadn't stood firm on many things in his life, but by God, he was going to stand firm on this matter. No goddamn flowers on his hat. He squeezed his eyes shut and thought about breaking Dallas's other leg. The idea's appeal grew as he heard more people arrive, their high-pitched voices grating on his nerves like a metal fork across a tin plate. A harsh whisper penetrated the cacophony of sound surrounding him. "Dare you? Double dare you." The two voices fell into silence, and he could feel the boys' gazes boring into him. God, he wished he'd never shut his eye. It was harder to scare people off once they'd taken to staring at him. "Looks like he's asleep, but he's standing. My pa can sleep while he's sitting in the saddle. Seen him do it once. So touch him and see." A suffocating expectation filled the air with tension. Then the touch came. A quick jab just above his knee. Damn. He'd hoped the boys were older, bigger, so he could grab one by the scruff of his shirt, hoist him to eye level, and scare the holy hell out of him. Only he knew a bigger boy wouldn't have jabbed him so low. Reluctantly, Houston slowly opened his eye and glanced down. Two ragamuffins not much older than 6 stared up at him. "Get," he growled. "Hey, mister, you a train robber?" one asked. "Is that how come you're standing over here so no one can see you?" "I said to get." "How'd you lose your eye?" the other asked. His eye? Houston had lost a good deal more than his eye. Trust boys to overlook the obvious. His younger brother had. Austin never seemed to notice that his brother had left the better part of his face on some godforsaken battlefield. "Get out of here," Houston ordered, deepening his voice. Blinking, the boys studied him as though he were a ragged scarecrow standing in a cornfield. With a quickness they obviously weren't expecting, he stomped his foot in their direction, leaned low, and pulled his lips back into a snarl. The boys' eyes grew as large as their hollering mouths, just before they took off at a run. Watching their bare feet stir up the dry dirt in the street leading away from the depot, Houston wished he could run with them, but family obligations forced him to remain. In resignation, he repositioned himself against the wall, slipped his hand inside the opening of his duster, and stroked the smooth handle of the Colt revolver. The thought of breaking Dallas's leg no longer held enough satisfaction. Houston decided he'd shoot his brother when he got back to the ranch. Amelia Carson had never been so terrified in all her 19 years. Afraid the train might hurtle her onto the platform before she was ready to disembark, she clung to her seat as the huffing beast lurched to a stop. The wheels squealed over the wobbly tracks, the whistle blew, and the bell clanged as the engine settled with an ominous hiss. The pungent smell of wood smoke worked its way into the compartment as the passengers flung open the doors, forgetting their manners as they shoved each other aside in their hurry to scramble off the train. Amelia had never seen such an odd collection of people crammed together in one space. Women with throaty voices and low-necked bodices had graced the compartment. A few well-groomed men had worn tailored suits, as though they'd been invited to dine with a queen. Only the guns bulging beneath their jackets indicated otherwise. Some men, smelling of sweat and tobacco, had squinted at her, as though contemplating the idea of slitting her throat if she closed her eyes. So she'd rarely slept. Instead, she had spent her time reading the letters that Dallas Leigh had written to her. She was certain the bold, strong handwriting was a reflection of the man who had responded to her advertisement, indicating she had a desire to travel west and become a wife. He was a hero, inasmuch as the South could claim a hero in a war that it had lost. He had been a lieutenant at 17, a captain at 19. He owned his land, his cattle, and his destiny. He had wrapped his proposal for marriage around dreams of building a ranching empire and having a son with whom to share them.